Broadcasting from the world headquarters of the National Floor Safety Institute is America's slip and fall guy, Russ Kenzie.
This is America's slip and fall guy, Russ Kenzior. Thanks again for listening to my podcast. As in some previous interviews where I talk about prevention of slips, trips, and falls, and the fact that there's such a wide range of products and services and people, trained professionals that can offer such a wide range of advice and or products and services to prevent these types of injuries. Today we're fortunate to have with us Christopher Price from Range Hospitality Advisors, who's a service provider in the field of safety operations and training. Welcome, Christopher. I'm sorry. Take a minute and tell us about your company. Tell us what you do.
Sure. So, as you just said, we offer safety audits, or safety training, operations training, and general training overall for the hospitality industry. So, from restaurants to hotels to country clubs, resorts, even warehouse distribution centers. We really focus on safety and operations becoming one as part of the operations in itself. Focusing on employee behavior, and really just focusing on general management training. So a lot of times you'll see, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, sometimes you have an employee that's been with you for X amount of years, and you want to promote them to management, and you have that fancy title, but they don't have the skills that go along with it. So we're able to help provide that guidance for owners, hotel owners, restaurant owners, so forth, and even management as well. So in a nutshell, that's what we provide. Safety, we offer a lot of OSHA compliance issues on how to handle an OSHA inspection. We also offer actual food safety audits for whether it's a restaurant kitchen or even a warehouse distribution center. So it's a gambit of services we offer, but it's kind of your one-stop shop from safety to operations, compliance, and training.
Well, give us a little bit of your background. How did you get into this business, and a little bit on your experience in previous work?
Yeah, so I actually am a professionally trained chef. I cooked professionally for 9 years. I went to Chef John Folt's Culinary Institute at Nicholls State University in Thibodaux, Louisiana. It's a tongue twister there, but it's down the bayou. It's way south in Louisiana, and I earned my bachelor's of science in culinary arts, and I finished up overseas in Écully, France at the Institut Paul Bocuse. And after graduating, came back home to the States, worked at various restaurants from fine dining to mom and pop restaurants, and did that for about 9 years. The last restaurant I was working 12 to 14-hour days, 6 days a week. I was burning myself out. So I actually took a right course. I went into health and safety, working for the Louisiana Restaurant Association, doing work comp audits for all the restaurants, C-stores, country clubs in Louisiana, South Louisiana, mainly New Orleans, down the bayou area, and really enjoyed it, loved it. I got to meet with owners, managers. We would talk about safety and what we can do to help prevent a lot of injuries that are happening in the restaurant. And we talk about menu design and food for another 10, 15 minutes just for the heck of it. So it was a great experience, great learning experience for me, and I loved it. And so ever since then, I actually stuck with it and stayed in safety and compliance ever since.
So you kind of learned about safety from the ground floor up, so to speak. You were on the floor as a chef, working in restaurant kitchens. I mean, you know firsthand.
Absolutely.
Just how slippery floors in a kitchen, regardless of the type of kitchen.
And look, I tell any and all managers and employees, I've been there, done that, have the T-shirt when it comes to the scars and the burns, because I was careless and reckless. And maybe I didn't have a proper training that I should have had, when I was coming up in the ranks. So having that experience and actually having those, I hate to say, unfortunate injuries, it actually was a teaching lesson for me to, let everybody else know, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what needs to be put in place. So kind of having those scars has actually helped.
Yeah, it's a tough way to learn, isn't it?
It is. It is a tough way to learn.
Speaking of training, you're here today taking the Walkway Auditor Certificate Holder course from the NFSI. What motivated you to take this course?
Well, first off, this is a fantastic course as far as the content, and I can't stress that enough. As far as you go to a lot of seminars, you bring back maybe one piece of information you can bring back to your employer or yourself. I've learned I wrote down at least 10 things that I've learned in the past 2 days that I know from going from nothing to 100. It's amazing from looking at from a compliance standpoint to the inner workings from your experience of what happens in a courtroom, how are things looked at in a courtroom, and especially if you're going to open your own company, what to do and what not to do. I think those lessons are priceless. And so having that experience, and you're able to kind of preach and say, look, you may want to word something this way, or may look at something in a certain way or direction is invaluable. So also just looking at the science of slips and falls, and it's not just if you see something on the ground, we know we need to pick it up, changing behavior, but really looking at chemicals and products and flooring and the types of floors that are available and how to properly clean them. So those are huge elements that I know I can help provide my potential clients.
Well, that's actually a great question. How do you see yourself using your past experience as a chef in the restaurant industry and coupling that with the safety training you're getting through this Walkway Auditor course? How do you see yourself taking that experience and training education into your customer base?
Sure. The knowledge, we know that obviously, I think in most industries, but especially the restaurant and hospitality industry, slips and falls are number one. My previous employer, I worked for Darden Restaurant Group. We owned and operated 8 restaurant brands, and slips and falls were, I think of the 7 of the 8 brands, slips and falls were number one issue from a work comp standpoint, even from public liability as well. So the information I've learned here, I know how to basically look at proper rugs or where to place them, and looking at just obviously trip hazards, potential trip hazards, documentation. There's a gambit of information, and it's not one pack, I guess one, I don't know how to describe it, one perfect little ball of information that you can say here and deliver it. It's a lot of different aspects, and it's cyclical. It's kind of a continuous wheel of information that you learn that kind of builds and compounds on one another. And I would say that knowing what to do and how to solve slips and falls, I'm able to bring that to a client, and it's up to the client to take that information and run with it and really want to implement it.
It's a point that was made during the course. Commitment, having skin in the game.
Yep.
It always comes down to the fact that many property owners, many perhaps of your past employers, were consciously aware of a slip and fall problem, the cost associated with paying for slips and falls, and just all the consequences. In your experience, how important was it from your past employers that they commit themselves to a prevention program, policies, procedures, training of employees? Because you mentioned yourself, you have the scars. Many people that work within the food service industry are young people. It's a tough job,
right.
Tough hours, high turnover.
You got it.
So those are all challenges.
Correct.
And I guess the question is, how do you see yourself addressing those challenges? And your past, how big of a deal was that as far as proper training, education, getting people on board, establishing, if you will, a safety culture?
Correct. Yep. So trying to get people on board, Darden has many positive aspects in that they actually start from it's the top up, right? They have buy-in, and it trickles down to the employees. The managers have buy-in into their actual restaurant. So if there's injuries at their restaurant, they're dinged on their P&L statement, and there goes their a potential bonus. So they have skin in the game automatically by, okay, well, I need to make sure that I have documented training and that I've implemented it. We do a lot of follow-up. A great mentor and one of our supervisors, Dave Wachter, he's a fantastic guy, and he always say, Chris, make sure you put a bow on it. And what he meant by that was make sure you have a policy in place, you implement it, and then you follow up. Follow up is key because a lot of times things get lagged off. You tell someone a recommendation and they just kind of go adrift with it and they go back to their daily lives. If you're constantly following up with a manager or whomever you're talking to or a potential client, it's a reminder. And also just ensuring that they're really doing what they need to do. They can tell you one thing and they maybe want to pencil whip, whether if they have a checklist or, I'm doing that. Follow behind and make sure that they're doing what they need to do. And when they notice that, I call it the pucker factor goes up and they realize, okay, I need to stay on top of my game because I have someone looking over. But to create that buy-in, it takes proper hiring up front and proper training, especially with the younger generation, Gen Y, even Gen X. People want instant satisfaction. So if I'm hired on today, I want to know how I'm doing today, at the end of today. I want to know how I'm doing at the end of the week, and I want to know how I'm doing at the end of the month. And even before that, constantly let that person know, hey, this is what you're doing great at, and this is where we need to improve on. So we are huge into training and follow-up. I think that is paramount. I hear it all the time. Managers, I don't have time to do that. I have 100 other things going on. But as part of a manager, that is your role and responsibility as well. That's part of it. So.
Well, and it's funny you say that. We hear it all the time, and in my experience as an expert witness, reviewing and reading depositions from folks that were like yourself from a restaurant, who have the same challenges: high turnover, long hours. Sometimes policies are not very clear, procedures are not very clear. And it's a difficult job to really manage all these balls that are kind of in the air at the same time. Do you have any success stories, any tips that you've learned in your experience that you can pass along to folks listening, what they can do?
Yeah, I'll give you two great tips. One is have someone in your restaurant be that champion, whether you want to call it a safety champion, whatever semantics, whatever you want to term it. But have an employee that wants to be a potential manager and they're eager to learn. Have them conduct a safety meeting or have them conduct any and all pre-shift meetings. And I would always advise having your dishwashers, everyone who is an employee at your restaurant, hotel, country club, they need to attend that meeting. No one should ever feel excluded from any meeting that, oh, no, it's just a manager meeting. Nope. You will create absolutely great buy-in from, I had some of the best recommendations from a dishwasher because they're on the field, they're working every day, and something was aggravating them. Tell me about it. Let them vent. Let them vent. Doesn't mean you have to fix it immediately, but people just want to be heard and listened to. So if you do that, you will come up with some great ideas. A great idea that we came up with, and I actually took this from a manager out on the West Coast for Yard House. He had a fantastic idea, and it kind of grew like wildfire. And basically what he would do is, obviously, the first week coming on board, they knew that if they see something on the ground, they have to pick it up. Doesn't matter how busy it is. It could be in the middle of lunch, dinner rush. So what he would do is put $10 food voucher, crumble it up, throw it near the dish pit, and we would just stand there and see who was going to walk over it and pass by it. And the first person that went to pick it up, we stopped the kitchen immediately, told everybody to stop cooking, everything, and he made the biggest deal about it and praised that employee. And that employee felt like $1 million. That employee was also a server, and they didn't have to pay out of pocket for a meal. Right. So they open it up, they get $10, $15 of food, and they don't have to go out to eat after dinner, eating fast food. Right. And it created a culture where actually it was somewhat of a joking problem was I received an email as, Chris, the next 2 to 3 days, I had everybody say, look, I'm picking up a napkin off the ground. Am I going to get some type of reward for it? But you're starting to create that culture change, and that's what you want. So just even a simple tip as that is a first step into trying to create that culture.
Well, that's certainly one of the biggest challenges for the food service restaurant industry is maintenance, cleaning.
You got it.
Who have all worked in a restaurant all agree. In fact, the class you're at, that question was asked. Anybody ever work in a food service environment and were the floors slippery? And as you saw, everybody raised their hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of common knowledge that floors become very, very slippery in restaurants of any type, and that's a challenge. Was that a challenge for you as far as proper cleaning, getting the right chemicals, getting the right equipment?
Absolutely.
Removing those slippery films, those polymerized films from floors, both in the kitchen and the dining room.
Absolutely. The biggest issue that we found, it took less than 10 minutes to do an observation, get to the restaurant at 6 a.m., and we just observed the cleaning crew in the morning, and they were skipping a whole step on using the product that we use internally at the time. And so they were skipping a whole step because it was saving them time so they can do other things. And also, they were using hot water, which kills the enzyme in this product that we use as well. So they were doing two things that absolutely it was like just putting regular water on the ground, and they weren't scrubbing the floors properly. And we also, the other big issue, doesn't matter whether you're a chain restaurant or a mom and pop, we see a lot of cross-contamination of equipment, not having equipment for back of the house only and front of the house cleaning equipment from mops and scrub brushes to brooms, keeping those separate. That's a big issue. So color coding them and then making sure that you have a strict policy and process in place. We also we would designate a certain employee to be the kind of, I hate to say it, the floor monitor, but it was kind of part of their protocol, and it was fun for them because they were incentivized, and also employees were kind of on guard. I know some locations, depending on your culture, you don't want to create tension with that one employee versus the other employees, but depending on your culture, it was kind of a checks and balances, and it was an assistant to that manager to really focus and watch that while it's dinner rush, lunch rush.
Yeah, so leadership plays a big role.
Right.
Creating the culture, folks doing the proper inspections, looking out for hazards, making sure things that are on the floor that may create a slip or a trip hazard are promptly identified and cleaned.
Right. And I would add one thing to that is when we did a really a root cause analysis and really dove into our losses, I would say at least 50 to 60% of our issues were coming from the dish pit. So you're tracking, as you very well know, and you've said many times, is everything from water to food and grease is being tracked from the inside of the kitchen, and it's going to be tracked outside into the dining room. So how do we eliminate that? Is there a possibility? Can we engineer that out? Can we redirect how traffic is going in and out of the kitchen? So there's some really basic solutions. It's just for you to sit back and really observe, take 10, 15 minutes, and just really look and focus on what's going on in your restaurant.
Right. Well, how can people reach you? How can people get a hold of you?
You can reach my website is rangehospitalityadvisors.com, or you can reach me at chris@rangehospitalityadvisors.com, and then my office number as well is 504-249-6989.
And where are you based out of?
New Orleans, Louisiana.
I'll be darned.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming out, spending a few minutes talking to us about your experience and background in the restaurant industry, the problem related to slips and falls, and some of the solutions that you can offer your customers on developing a safety culture, preventing these types of injuries. And so we appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Again, we were speaking with Christopher Price from Range Hospitality Advisors. Again, thanks for coming out. We'll talk to you
Appreciate
soon, and hopefully the next 2 days of the Walk Where You Order course you'll find as interesting as the first 2 days.
That's great. Everyone should definitely sign up. It's the best money well spent for what you learn in 4 to 5 days. I can't stress it enough. Look, I have no affiliation with, as far as plugging you guys, but I tell you, it's the the information I get to bring back to my clients and really solve issues and problems is paramount. So,
well, thanks again, Christopher. Good luck on the next 2 days, and we'll talk soon.
You got it. Thank you.